Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with all of you this morning here in Germany. As all of you know, GDP is slowing all over the world, everywhere, every region. And the reason is productivity has been declining for 20 years all over the world. The result, unemployment's high, and especially among the young millennial generation coming of age today. Our economists project 20 more years of slow growth. And here's the final calculus. We've had two industrial revolutions in the 19th and 20th century. Tremendous leap forward for the human race, but here's the bottom line. This morning, the 62 wealthiest human beings on the planet, we could put them right here in this little room, the 62 wealthiest human beings on the planet, their combined wealth now equals the accumulated wealth of 1/2 the human population living on Earth. There's something dysfunctional about the way we're organizing our economic life here on this little planet. And now the economic crisis is compounded by a more profound environmental crisis. In the Industrial Revolution, we dug up massive amounts of carbon from the Carboniferous era to run the industrial way of life. And now the sad reality is we are in real-time climate change on planet Earth. What's terrifying about climate change, it's never explained, is it changes the water cycles of the planet. That's why it is so dramatic. You know, we're the watery planet. We go to other planets with our satellites, we look for water, and if there's no water, we're not interested. Our ecosystems have developed over millions of years on Earth based on the water cycles that traverse the cloud covers. For every 1 degree that the temperature goes up on this planet from industrial-induced CO2 emissions, for every 1 degree that temperature goes up, the atmosphere is sucking up 10%, 7% more precipitation from the ground. The heat is forcing it up there, and that means we're getting more concentrated precipitation in the clouds, more extreme water events, more dramatic winter snows, more dramatic spring flooding, more dramatic summer droughts, more dramatic wildfires and hurricanes and tsunamis and typhoons all across this earth every year on an exponential curve. Our ecosystems cannot catch up to this runaway water cycle. We're heading toward a cataclysm in real time in the next several decades. Our scientists tell us we're in the 6th extinction event right now on this earth. We've had 5 massive extinction events on this planet in 450 million years, well before human beings were ever here. And every time, the chemistry of the planet shifted suddenly in massive die-out. Each time, 10 million years or more to recover biodiversity lost. Our scientists tell us we are now in the 6th extinction event, and if you're parents and grandparents, I want you to listen to this. Between now and the end of the century, we could lose over half the species of life on Earth. That's a wipeout. We have little 2-year-olds who will be my age at the end of the century. They may be facing something that's beyond our ability to even describe. As my wife says, we're not grasping the enormity of this moment. 99.5% of all the species of life that have ever inhabited this earth have come and gone. We're the babies here. Anatomically modern humans, we've only been here about 200,000 years. There's no guarantee we're going to make it through this next period of history. So what do? We have an economic crisis that's compounding every day. That global economic crisis has given rise to climate change, threatening the future viability of life on Earth in our lifetimes. It's clear we need a new economic narrative for the world. It has to be compelling. We need a game plan for that narrative, and it has to be deliverable in both the developing and developed nations. We're going to have to move into a post-carbon ecological era in the next several decades if we have any chance of getting over the divide and into a new journey for our species and our planet. So we have to step back and ask a very important question this morning. How do the great economic revolutions in history occur? If we know how they occur, we can get a roadmap here at Daimler and for all our businesses around the world and for civilization at large as to the new journey that we need to take with the compass that we need to have with us. There have been at least 7 major economic paradigm shifts in history, and they share a common denominator, which is kind of interesting anthropologically. At a certain moment of time, 3 defining technologies emerge and converge to create what we call in engineering a general purpose technology platform, an infrastructure that fundamentally transforms the way we manage, power, and move economic activity. What are those 3 technologies? Number 1, new communication technologies to more efficiently manage our economic activity. Number 2, new sources of energy to more efficiently power our economic activity. And number 3, new modes of transportation and logistics to more efficiently move the economic activity. When communication technologies, new sources of energy, new modes of transportation come together, they fundamentally change the way we manage, power, and move economic life. Let me give you 2 examples. First Industrial Revolution, 19th century. Communication, energy, transport, manage, power, and move economic activity. Let's go to Britain. The Brits take us into this first Industrial Revolution with a new communication revolution, steam-powered printing. Big leap forward from manual printing. We could mass produce communication cheap, efficiently to manage our economic activity. And after that, the Brits laid out a telegraph system in the second half of the 19th century. These communication media converged in Britain with a new power, a new source of energy, cheap coal. And then the Brits invented the steam engine to harvest that coal. And then this is what's really ingenious. They put the steam engine on rails, locomotives, national transportation, logistics, large urban centers. The trains connected urban life, a new way of organizing our value chains. 20th century, second industrial revolution, Germany, and even more importantly, the United States. Again, communication, energy, transport, manage power, and move economic life. Centralized electricity, and especially the telephone. You know, we think of the internet as a pretty big deal, but the telephone was a huge leap forward. Instant communication, speed of light across the earth. Later, radio and television. These communication media converged in the United States with cheap new energy, Texas oil. And then we borrowed the German invention by Daimler, the internal combustion engine, a Daimler invention, and Henry Ford put everybody on the road with cars, buses, and trucks. That second industrial revolution took the whole world through the 20th century, and it peaked. July 2008 was the peak. Remember that month. Brent crude oil hit $147 a barrel on world markets in July 2008. And when that happened, the economy of the world shut down that month, collapsed. No economic activity. That was the great economic earthquake that signaled the beginning of a long end game for the second industrial revolution. The collapse of the financial market 60 days later, that was the aftershock. And the reason is everything in the second industrial revolution is based on carbon. Fertilizers, pesticides, construction materials, most of our pharmaceutical products, synthetic fiber, power, transport, heat, and light. It's an endless list of carbon-based products and services that run our contemporary way of life. So when the price of crude oil starts to go over about 90 a barrel, all the other prices go up. When we get into the zone of 120 to 125 a barrel, purchasing power starts to shut down because of high prices. We are now in a long end game of growth and blowback, growth and blowback. In 2009 and 10, oil went down to 50 a barrel because there was no economic activity. We started to regrow the economy in 2010, and by 2014, we hit another spike at $114 a barrel. Prices went up, purchasing power slowed again. Now this is compounded because we now have a struggle within the fossil fuel energy at the last stages of this second industrial revolution. OPEC is keeping oil production high to wipe out its competitors, shale gas and tar sands, and it's doing it. It's gone. Shale gas is going bankrupt in the US, tar sands is going down, and then those oil prices are going to go back up. This is a long end game. So let me share an anecdote with you. When Chancellor Merkel became Chancellor of Germany, she asked me to come to Berlin in the first few weeks of her new government to help her address the question, how do we grow the German economy and grow jobs on her watch? The first question I asked the new Chancellor when I got to Berlin is, Madam Chancellor, how do you grow the German economy, the European Union economy, and for that matter, the global economy, when your businesses across Germany are plugged into a second industrial revolution infrastructure of centralized communication, fossil fuel nuclear power, internal combustion road, rail, water, and air transport, and the productivity out of that system peaked over 20 years ago. That's the issue. Now, I just mentioned this term productivity. Let's talk about it. There's a dirty little secret in economics that economists do not like to share, so I'm going to take the liberty of sharing it with you. What is the nature of productivity? We used to believe there are two factors that measure productivity: better machines and better workers. But when Robert Solow won the Nobel Prize for economic growth theory in the 1980s, he let the little secret out. He said, when we take a look at every single year of the Industrial Revolution, these two factors, better machines, better workers, only accounts for about 14% of productivity. So Robert Solow asked the big question, where'd the other 86% of productivity come from? Don't know. Now, does that surprise you that economists don't know? It should be basic to their profession. Let me explain why they don't know, because it's critical to talking about what's happening here with Daimler today and the significance of this. When economic theory was penned in the late 1700s, the vogue was Newton's physics, so everyone wanted to borrow Newton's metaphors, including the new economists. So, for example, you know Newton's law, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, Newton's law? Adam Smith borrowed that metaphor to describe the invisible hand of supply and demand. For every action, an equal and opposite reaction. You know Newton's law, a body in motion stays in motion, less disrupted? Baptists say the French economists borrowed that metaphor to say that supply stimulates demand, which generates supply, which stimulates demand and less disrupted. All of our economic theory is based on Newton's physics as metaphor, and there's only one thing wrong with this. Newton's physics has absolutely nothing to do with economics. Nothing. Economics are governed by the same laws that govern the whole universe, govern the solar system, govern our biosphere, govern our economic activity and everything you and I do today. Those are the first and second laws of energy, the laws of thermodynamics. They were discovered by German, European, and American engineers in the late 19th century when they were examining energy flows in machines. Here's the first law of energy that governs the universe. All the energy in the universe today has been here since the beginning of time, the Big Bang, and will be here to the end of time. We don't create or destroy energy. But the second law says, well, that's true, but energy always changes form, but only in one direction. From concentrated, the Big Bang, to dispersed through the galaxies, from hot to cooled off, from available to unavailable. Entropy is a measure of unavailable energy, can't do any work for us. What does this have to do with this morning? There are three types of systems in the universe: open, closed, and isolated. An open system exchanges matter and energy with the outside world. A closed system exchanges energy but doesn't exchange matter with the outside world. And an isolated system doesn't exchange matter or energy. The Earth, in relation to the solar system, is B. We have plenty of energy for the sun. But in terms of the fixed matter on Earth, which is a form of energy, the rare earths, the metallic ore, what we've got is what blew off the sun. We get a few meteorites down here, little cosmic dust, but that's about it. Now, all of you have your smartphones this morning. There are 30 little rare earths in your smartphone. They've been here since we blew off the sun, fixed, a metallic ore. These are forms of energy in a material form. So here's what economics is really all about. We take available energy out of nature on this planet. It can be a rare earth, a metallic ore, a fossil fuel. And then we extract it, we store it, we ship it, we produce goods and services from it, we distribute it, we consume it, we recycle it. At every step of conversion from nature through us and back to nature, we have to embed energy into the product or service to get it to the next stage, but we lose energy in the transformation. This is important. This is called aggregate efficiency. That's the ratio of potential to useful work at every single conversion of every economic activity across our value chains. Let me give you an example of how it works in nature. If a lion chases down an antelope or a gazelle and kills it, only about 10 to 20% of the energy in that antelope is actually embedded into the lion. The rest is lost in the chase, the hunt, and the consumption. That's low aggregate efficiency. What does this have to do with my discussion with the Chancellor of Germany? She's a physicist, and here's what I explain. In the United States, Germany was comparable. We started at around 3% aggregate efficiency in 1905 at the beginning of the Second Industrial Revolution, meaning 97% of every conversion, we lost more energy than was embedded into the product or service. By 1990, the United States got up to 14% aggregate efficiency, and nothing's changed. We've never gone above that ceiling. Germany got up to 18.5% aggregate efficiency in the 1990s. Nothing's changed. Nothing went beyond that ceiling. Japan got to 20% aggregate efficiency in the 1990s. Nothing's changed. We now know, with the younger generation economists who've gone down and back and looked at the record, if you take better machines, better workers, and then aggregate efficiency, that third factor amounts to much of the 85% of productivity. Daimler could have told you that at the beginning of this great company, so could Henry Ford. Every engineer and chemist and biologist and architect understands productivity is the ratio of potential to useful work. It has everything to do with the revolution that you're going to hear about today with Daimler. And on that first day with the Chancellor, I said to her, you can have fiscal reforms, market reforms, labor reforms. You can have all sorts of new incentives for killer products, but if your businesses are locked into Germany into a second industrial revolution platform infrastructure, centralized telecommunication, fossil fuel nuclear power, internal combustion, road, rail, water, and air transport on dumb systems, you're never going to get beyond the ceiling of 18.5% aggregate efficiency. You're stalled. And on that first day, I outlined a third industrial revolution for the Chancellor, a new conversion of communication, energy, and transport. And at the end of the day, she said to me, Mr. Rifkin, I like this third industrial revolution. We will have this for Germany. I'll come back in a few minutes and report on where we are all these years later. The communication internet has matured. It's been 25 years since the World Wide Web. Everyone in this room has a smartphone on them right now. This communication internet is now converging with a digitalized renewable energy internet, and that in turn is now converging this morning with an automated GPS-guided transportation and logistics internet to create three internets. A super internet to manage, power, and move economic activity, communication internet, digitalized renewable energy internet, automated GPS transportation internet, a single internet to manage, power, and move economic life across the value chains. These three internets ride on top of a platform called the Internet of Things. We're putting sensors in every device so they can monitor real-time economic activity. But where does it go? To send it back to communication, energy, and transport internets to manage, power, and move our value chains. We have sensors now in the agricultural fields watching the water flow, the salinity of the crops. We have sensors on the factory floor monitoring economic activity in real time. We have sensors in smart homes now monitoring our economic activity. And now, with the transportation internet, we are laying out sensors in warehouses and distribution centers. And as I'll talk about in a few minutes, in the center of this will be the mobile data centers, those Daimler vehicles, thousands of them, that are collecting that data and making it available with analytics, algorithms, and apps to millions of people, individuals and commuters and small and large businesses, to begin to manage on this transportation internet activity like we have already done on the communication internet and are beginning to do on the energy internet. By 2030, we will have ubiquitous interconnectivity, devices talking to other devices and to us. And what this is really all about, we are externalizing the central nervous system of the human race, literally. We're externalizing that central nervous system with an artificial prothesis, this Internet of Things platform, this third industrial revolution, so that everything can be connected and communicate with everything else in one planet. On the upside, the human race can now come together on this Internet platform for a third industrial revolution and began to share economic activity by eliminating many of the middlemen and the vertically integrated organizations that were always the referee between production and distribution. That means a leap forward in entrepreneurial spirit. We began to democratize economic life. The technology, the digitalization makes this possible. On the other hand, let me put a caveat here. While we're excited about interconnectivity, becoming a single human family in all our diversity, beginning to engage on one planet in the biosphere, we're also somewhat chilled. When everything's interconnected, how do we ensure network neutrality? How do we make sure everyone has equal access and no one purloins this Internet of Things third industrial revolution for either political or commercial ends? How do we assure privacy in an interconnected world? How do we guarantee data? How do we prevent cybercrime and cyber terrorism and the disruption of the system? These are heady, dark net issues that we will have to address. And this will keep us busy for 3 generations. This is the political dynamic of the next 30 years. But assuming this morning we're going to be able to address the dark side, here's the promise. Everyone in this room today has many value chains you live off of every day, as family members, as business people, constantly extracting things from nature and shipping them and storing them and producing them and delivering them and consuming them and recycling across the logistics value chain. It's all about logistics. And this means that you can begin to go up on this Internet of Things platform, which is already emerging, and you can have a transparent picture of all the economic life of the world. This is amazing. Even big companies didn't have this data. When I started at the Wharton School in 1963, my professor turned to me and he said, "Wake up, Mr. Rifkin. Caveat emptor, young man. Let the buyer beware. The seller never wants the buyer to know what the seller knows." Now, we're going to have economic data flowing through an Internet of Things platform. Everyone's going to know the economic flow across the world. This is a real leveling of the playing field for a democratization of enterprise. So let's say you have a small or medium-sized business, or a large company, or a nonprofit cooperative. You can go up on this emerging Internet of Things platform that's just happening, and you can cut your value chain of data out from all the other data flowing through the sensors. You can just cut your value chain of your big data out from the rest of the noise for free, near zero marginal cost. Just need a smartphone and a service provider. And then you can take the big data on your value chain and you can mine that big data with your own analytics, create your own algorithms, establish your own apps so that you can dramatically increase your aggregate efficiency at every step of conversion on your value chain, and by doing so, dramatically increase your productivity, dramatically reduce your marginal cost, and dramatically reduce your ecological footprint in a very, very streamlined, smart planet, third industrial revolution society. Some of those marginal costs are already approaching zero marginal cost, which is the title of my new book, The Zero Marginal Cost Society. And this is creating a new dynamic called the sharing economy. What is this sharing economy we're hearing about? Well, strangely enough, capitalism has given birth to a progeny we didn't see it coming. unexpected. And this little sharing economy that capitalism gave birth to is flourishing alongside its parent. And like any parent-child relationship, they're trying to figure out how to relate to each other. The parent capitalism needs to nurture this sharing economy, let it grow, let it create an identity and a presence in the world. But if you're a parent, you know that it's not that easy. Sometimes the parent wants to absorb the child into a reflection of the parent. And sometimes the child wants that, and sometimes the child wants their own independent gait. This is a very, very difficult relationship emerging. But let me be clear. This sharing economy, the result of digitalization, which increases our productivity and aggregate efficiency, reduces our marginal cost, it's not going away. This is the first new economic system to enter onto the world stage since capitalism and socialism in the 19th century. We are already in a hybrid economic system, especially among young millennials. Part of the day, they're in the market, exchanging goods and services for margins and profit as owners and workers and sellers and buyers. But part of the day, our young people are sharing virtual goods and now sharing vehicles and beginning to share energy and other things at low to zero marginal cost outside the market in abundance in the sharing economy. We've already seen the impact of digitalization on reducing cost to zero marginal cost because the first of the three internets is in. So if we take a look at what's happened with the communication internet in 25 years, we'll get a good picture of what's starting to happen with energy and transport and logistics. We have 3 billion people on the internet right now. And pretty soon we're going to have everyone on the internet. I just returned from China. I'm actually going back tonight. And in China, they now have a smartphone for $25. $25 with more computing power than sent our boys to the moon in the 1960s. Everyone's going to be connected in the next 20 years. So we now have a new category. 3 billion people are now prosumers every day. They're not just owners and buyers and sellers and buyers and owners and workers. They're now prosumers. They're producing and sharing all sorts of virtual goods on the communication internet at near zero marginal cost in the sharing economy. We have millions of people with cheap digital technology, which is studio quality, and they're making their own music. And the cost of making studio quality music, very low. And whether you share that music with one person or a billion people on the web, it's the same cost, near zero marginal cost, nearly free. We have young people producing and sharing their own YouTube videos, open source, no intellectual property, on YouTube every day. What does it take to make a video? The cost is almost zero, the fixed cost. The marginal cost is nearly free. You can send it to a billion people on the web. We have young people producing and sharing their own news blogs, their own social media. They're putting out free e-books. And we have 6 million college students taking massive open online college courses taught by the best professors, best universities. They're getting college credits for free. Now, it is true this new third industrial revolution in communication has disrupted traditional industries. The music industry has plunged. Television has shrunk because of YouTube videos. Newspapers and magazines have suffered because of free blogs. My last book, Zero Marginal Cost Society, I probably shouldn't say this, but it came out on the pirate blogs before we could publish, and it was ranked on them before Amazon could even rank it. Now, we could outlaw all the technology. That's not going to happen. This is a revolution. This democratizes economic life. On the other hand, while traditional industries have been disrupted, thousands of new businesses have emerged, profit and nonprofit, not just the Googles and the Wikipedias. Thousands of businesses have emerged, and they're creating the connections, the platforms, and the apps for a third industrial revolution. Now, we thought there would be a firewall here, and while the zero marginal cost would impact the communication internet, the virtual world of bits, it would not cross over the firewall to the physical world of atoms. What I'm saying in the zero marginal cost society is that firewall has now been broken. It's called the Internet of Things. We now have millions of people in Europe, it's really started here in Germany, are producing and sharing their own renewable energy, and the marginal cost of that energy is near zero. And now we have car sharing services, and what I'll talk about in a few minutes, automated transport logistics that's going to allow millions and hundreds of millions of us, homeowners and businesses in our commutes, in our movement of goods and services to reduce the marginal cost, increase the productivity, reduce the marginal cost of distributing goods and services and moving ourselves around the world over the next 30 years when the transportation internet matures. That's the revolution. Let's look at energy. What's happened in Germany since the Chancellor came in, that first conversation we had? Germany's now 32% of your electricity here in Germany. Right now, this morning, 32% of your electricity is solar and wind. Renewable energy at near zero marginal cost. You're going to be heading to 40% very soon, and you're going to be heading to 100% of your energy, solar, wind, geothermal, and other renewables, at near zero marginal cost within the next 25 years. The exponential curve's there. But here's what's interesting in Germany and elsewhere. The fixed cost, think the communication internet, and then keep in your mind where we're headed, the transportation internet. The fixed cost of generating solar and wind have been on an exponential curve for 20 years, just like computers. When I was a kid in the 1940s, 1950s, we only had a few computers. They cost millions of dollars. The chairman of IBM predicted we would need 7 computers for the entire world. They were too expensive. We did not anticipate the Intel chip. Intel was able to double the capacity, half the cost on its computer chips every 2 years, and now smartphones, $25. What's not well known is solar and wind have been on a similar exponential curve for over 20 years. A solar watt, single solar watt cost $78 to generate 1 watt solar in 1978. You know what it costs this morning? 50 cents. In 18 months from now, 35 cents. It's heading way towards zero. It's going to be as cheap to put in solar and wind and bioconverters and other harvesting technologies in every little nook and cranny of the world in 25 years from now. Similar curve that we've seen in communication computing. But what's interesting in Germany is once you pay for the fixed cost of your solar and wind technology, and that's plummeting, the marginal cost is near zero for that energy. The sun has not sent a bill for Germany. The wind has not sent a bill to Germany. The geothermal heat has not sent a bill for Germany. Imagine the opportunity here when the communication internet connects with a digitalized renewable energy internet, and German businesses can plug into that platform, and at every step of conversion on their value chain, the energy they use is near zero marginal cost and non-polluting and ubiquitous and nearly free. Now, it's true right now that the wholesale prices are plummeting because of these new energies, and it's true the retail price is somewhat high because you're trying to deal with the paying off the feed-in tariffs, but you're heading to this new era. You're going to get over the hump, put in the storage, and move toward this new vision. Germany, once again, is leading, as you did in the second industrial revolution with the introduction of the Daimler internal combustion engine. You're now leading in the third industrial revolution with the introduction of the distributed renewable energy internet. What's interesting about this energy internet is who's producing the energy in Germany. There are 4 major power companies here, EnBW, RWE, Vattenfall, and who am I missing? E.ON. We thought they were invincible 10 years ago, but here's what happened. What happened to them is what happened to the music industry and television and newspapers and magazines and book publishing. Millions of small players have come together in Germany and created electricity cooperatives. Farmers and small businesses and homeowners, all of them got low-interest loans from the banks because the banks knew they could pay back from the premium energy they were generating and selling back to the grid. Didn't need the government for that, just needed those feed-in tariffs, and now those feed-in tariffs are being phased out because we've got scale and the prices of solar and wind are going down. The big 4 power companies are producing less than 7% of the new energy. They can't scale it. Let me say that the big power companies of the second industrial revolution were the most efficient means of scaling vertically integrated centralized power. We needed them every country in the world. Capitalist countries and socialist countries, they all needed them. They were really good. But the new energies are ubiquitous. You have to collect them everywhere. They're not centralized. You have to collect the sun, the wind, the heat in small amounts. This favors lateral economies of scale. Small players coming together in new networks. Does this mean the end of the energy companies? Absolutely not, but they have to change their business model. I want you to think about this for a moment. About 6 years ago, Mr. Tyson, E.ON asked if I would debate their chairman in a neutral country in the Netherlands. And I laid out this new model, and I said, look, you're going to be in centralized energy for quite a while. Make it more efficient, reduce its carbon footprint. This isn't tomorrow morning, but you're also going to have to be in a third industrial revolution at the same time. So you can make a shift because we're moving out of carbon-based fuels into renewables. And I said in the third industrial revolution, the business model is totally different. You make more money by selling less electricity. And Mr. Tyson said, how do we do that? And I said, what you will do is you will set up partnerships with thousands and thousands of enterprises. And you will help manage the energy on the energy internet for them. And you will help them with their analytics, their algorithms, and their apps so they can dramatically increase their aggregate efficiency and productivity and reduce their marginal costs at every step of conversion on their value chain. In return for you providing this service, they will share their productivity gains back with the power company's performance contracts. 6, 7 years later, E.ON just did this last year. They took on the model. They sold off their fossil fuel and nuclear division. They're moving to renewables and energy management services. They want to be part of the new architecture that helps manage the digitalized renewable energy internet. And it's not just Europe. China, watch China. This is what I'm about to tell you is serendipitous. I don't work in China. I didn't up until recently, and was quite surprised when Premier Li became Premier of China. He put out his official biography, and he said that he was a fan and had read my book, The Third Industrial Revolution, and instructed the Chinese government this is where they want to move on the new economic trajectory. Since then, I've been making formal visits to China. And to show you how fast they move, they're right there with Germany. 11 weeks after my first visit, the chairman of the China National Grid, the electricity grid, the biggest one in the world, announced 11 weeks after my first visit, $82 billion to digitalize that servo-mechanical electricity grid, turn it into an energy internet so that millions of Chinese people could produce their own solar and wind locally and sell it back to the grid. That's already begun. So the coming together of the communication internet with the digitalized renewable energy internet makes possible the automated GPS transportation logistics internet. There's a sea change going on. Our young people are moving from ownership to access. In car sharing services, the sharing economy is here in transportation. For our generation, owning a car was quintessential to life. But I will say to you, increasingly, beginning with this generation, young people are going to begin to opt toward sharing vehicles and car sharing services. They want access to mobility in real time. We're still going to sell millions of vehicles. But there is a curve here over the next 40 years. My wife and I were at a small little restaurant last year, and we saw 2 young people on the corner, a man and woman. We saw him take out his smartphone. He connected to the communication internet, which immediately connected him on a car sharing service to GPS, the transportation internet. And that GPS transportation internet then found a driver within 90 seconds of the 2 passengers and picked them up, and PayPal paid. My gosh. That's the beginning of an automated GPS transportation internet. Where is this heading us? The same digital technology that allowed us to revolutionize communication and now energy now provides us the opportunity to revolutionize transportation and logistics. And that's what this is about this morning. And that's why I agreed to come here. Daimler is introducing a radical departure in logistics. And these new Daimler trucks are actually data centers. We now are seeing the first mobile data centers in the world. These thousands and thousands and thousands of vehicles on the road already, they are mobile data centers. They are nodes that allow us to connect up across all of our value chains to manage our mobility, our transportation, and our logistics, and they're providing real-time data. It's not just data for the vehicles. That's important. The data can tell the vehicles if one of their parts is going to malfunction. They can have remote guidance to correct it. All that's good. And again, it's efficiency. But more important, these trucks are providing data, these thousands of vehicles, in real time on traffic flows, on congestion, on weather patterns. And they're providing real-time data as they come in and out of warehouses as to what's going on in those distribution centers. Is there spare space in that warehouse? Is it possible you could reroute a truck that was going to go to another warehouse, and if there's empty space and you make all the warehouses a cooperative, maybe you could reroute the truck that needs to be at that warehouse because it's closer to the destination because you have 1 hour and there's open space. The key to this data in warehouse and logistics is you don't want empty vehicles. You don't want partially filled vehicles. You want them ready, mobile, moving 24/7 in an automated transportation logistics internet. That big data allows that. But Daimler's also going to have that available data for the homeowner and the commuter and everyone else that needs to find ways to increase their aggregate efficiency and their mobility, increase their productivity, reduce their marginal cost, and reduce the expense of transportation day to day, moment to moment. What we're seeing here with this new departure here with Daimler is Daimler is still going to be in the business for a long time of making vehicles. Those vehicles, however, are also going to allow Daimler to be the first, and there will be others that will try to follow suit, the first to create a logistics business, to be able to use that big data and the analytics and keep it open for everybody so that data can be used with apps. So whether you're a homeowner or a commuter or a small business, you can have help from Daimler. Daimler can help you mine your analytics. Daimler can help you create your algorithms and apps so you can dramatically increase your aggregate efficiency, your productivity, reduce your marginal cost and your ecological footprint, and share some of those gains back with Daimler. And hopefully, as we move out to the next stage of this, those hydrogen fuel cell vehicles will be out with Daimler in 2017. We're going to move to electric and fuel cell vehicles powered by renewable energy at near zero marginal cost. Those vehicles are going to be 3D printed with composite recycled materials at low marginal cost. And those vehicles are going to be operating on smart road systems where the cost of logistics is going to continue to plunge because of the analytics and algorithms that allow us to reduce our cost. What's the bottom line here? It isn't just about business. Let me say to you, I'm 71 years old, and I've gotten it wrong for 40 years. More than that. I started working on this question of energy and climate change in 1973. Some of you recall a book I wrote called Entropy in 1980, the first to talk about climate change, and I got it wrong since then. I thought we had more time. I honestly thought this was catastrophic, but we could get enough time to address this question. Like many of my colleagues, we did not anticipate exponential curves with the feedback loops. We are terrified. If you're a parent or grandparent, this is a moment for the human race to decide whether it wants to survive on this planet. We have the technology that allows us to do it now. We have the digital technology that can connect communication, energy, and transport to manage power and move economic life and dramatically reduce our ecological footprint with these efficiencies. We've got it. But the technology is not enough. We've got to change consciousness because the technology just enables. We've got to change the way we think. And here's why I'm guardedly hopeful. I'm only guardedly hopeful. I'm seeing young people come home from school all over the world in countries I visit, and they are developing a new sense of identity. I grew up in a geopolitical world, post-Westphalia. Every individual is a sovereign. Each of us seeks to be an autonomous agent. We compete with our fellow human beings for scarce resources in a zero-sum game. Our nation states represent our interests on the global field, and each nation state is sovereign. It competes with other nation states, both in the marketplace and the battlefield, for scarce resources in a zero-sum game planet. We can't live under that system anymore. It's taken us to the cataclysm of climate change and collapse. We have young people coming home from school, coming home from school, and they have a new form of identity. They don't identify with geopolitics. They're Skyping on Facebook. 1 billion of them are on a big, huge Facebook as an extended human family. They're chatting with each other, communicating, playing with each other, working with each other on a global scale. They're bypassing spatial boundaries. And they're coming home with biosphere consciousness. What is the biosphere? It's that tiny little reed. It's only 20 kilometers from the stratosphere to the ocean, 20 kilometers. That's where life and the chemistry of the planet interact to preserve this incredible experiment called life. So the kids are coming home and they're saying to their parents, why are you using so much water when we take the shower? We're wasting the water. Why is the television on? We're wasting the electricity. The one I particularly like, this may be hard to hear in Germany, why is this hamburger on my plate, this piece of beef? You know, the #1 cause of CO2 emissions are buildings, but in Germany, you've converted 2 million buildings to power plants to produce renewables. That's good. The #3 cause of CO2 emissions is transport, and now Daimler is going to take us into a world where we can reduce those emissions dramatically. But the #2 cause of climate change is never discussed. It's actually beef production and consumption in animal husbandry. The fact is, kids are coming home and say, did this hamburger come from a rainforest? Did they have to destroy the tree canopy for 3 little inches of topsoil to graze my cow? The kids understand when they destroy the tree canopy for the soil, for the hamburger, there may be rare species of plant and animal life that only live in that tree canopy. They're done. They're extinct. And the kids know if the tree canopy is raised for the soil to grow the hamburger for my meal, it means the trees are not absorbing CO2 from industrial emissions. That means the temperature of the planet goes up. That means the water cycle is on runaway feedback. That means some farmer 20,000 miles away has spring floods and summer droughts and can't feed her kids because of the hamburger. The children are learning ecological footprint. They're learning that everything we do intimately affects the well-being of some other human, some other creature, the planet we live in. It's not academic. This is actually the way this organism called the Earth, this biosphere, operates. So they're beginning to realize we have to reduce our ecological footprint and live ecologically. What does this have to do with the revolution this morning? The digitalization of communication, energy, and now with Daimler, transport and logistics, the internet comes to transportation logistics. This means that all of us, with this technology, everyone on the planet with cheap technology, can find new ways every day to mine the data they care about, use analytics and algorithms and apps to dramatically increase their aggregate efficiency and their productivity while reducing their ecological footprint, not just their marginal cost. Because what it means is we're getting more out of less of the Earth. Aggregate efficiency means at each conversion, you use less because you get more out of it embedded into the good or service. The technology's there to make us all chief productivity officers. Everyone on the planet can be an efficiency expert. So what we have today with the unfolding of this transportation revolution is the beginning of the third internet. Communication internet's here. The digitalized renewable energy internet, again, Germany has spearheaded this. And now with Daimler, very fitting for the company that gave us the internal combustion engine, Daimler's now taking us into the transportation and logistics internet, and this is going to allow us to dramatically increase our efficiencies, increase our productivity, reduce our marginal cost, and most importantly, reduce our ecological footprint so that we can have a transportation logistics system around the world for mobility that allows us to move off using so much of the Earth's resources and to move on to a renewable energy stage where we can replenish the Earth and realive the biosphere and pass on this planet to future generations who have a right for their moment to flourish here on Earth.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. Yeah. Stay here for a moment. Thank you very much. That was a really inspiring and thought-provoking talk, and that was the perfect way to start our campus. Thank you so much for joining us. You took our mines to the exact right altitude. Now we're getting closer to the road level, so I'm going to ask Wolfgang Bernhard on stage, and please join us up there. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Rifkin.